圣骑士。
That's a lot of water. Shut the lights up.
Shiny!
Smells like acetylene. That's a lot of water. Shut the lights up.
Shiny!
Smells like acetylene.
Expedia members get member prices and rewards for future trips.
I have been in therapy since I was 6 years old. My parents said we want her to be emotionally intelligent, and that I am. I never.
Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host, Paul. In this video, we're breaking down the Matrix. The sci-fi action epic's one of the best films ever made, and it was a complete phenomenon upon its release. Taking a lot of attention away from the return of Star Wars has ushered in a new kind of action movie for the next 10 years. Bullet time was everywhere, we all questioned our realities, and I even convinced my parents to buy me one of the mobiles from the movie. Didn't have Snake on it, and didn't open up with a spring, because that was actually custom built for the characters in this film. However, the movie completely took over my life. I cannot wait to go back to it, and this video will open up with this spring, because that was actually custom built for the characters in this film. However, the movie completely took over my life. I cannot wait to go back to it, and this video will be filled with Easter eggs, hidden details, and the making of trivia that shows why this movie was the one. So answer the call, take the red pill, and come with me as we step through the looking glass. Here we'll show you the truth that there is no spoon, and I can't wait to show the people what they don't want you to see.
Don't tell me you're a believer now.
He's looking at a cross. He's looking at a cross on the wall there, talking about faith. Now, we've also just launched a new audio podcast version of our classic movie breakdown, so if you want to listen to the show, then just go to the description and click on the link there. Now, with that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the Matrix. Although the movie released in 1999 and was set in like 2199, The Matrix itself takes place mainly in 1998. This is shown throughout a number of things, including the line of text that we first get on screen. It shows us 1998, and Neo's file later backs this up. This is pulled out by Agent Smith, with the last update on it happening in 1998. It also has its high school as Owen Patterson High, which was named after one of the movie's production designers. Interestingly, this file is written in OCR font, which is purposely designed to be read by machines. I see you. Now what we're watching here is a tracing program. Trinity asks if the call's being tracked, but Cypher says it's clean.
Are you sure it's not clean? Yeah, of course it is.
In hindsight, he's the Judas of the group and probably talking with the agents right at the beginning. He says,
You weren't supposed to believe me.
And later the agents talk about how they have an informant when Trinity escapes. Now I feel like he was talking with the agents and wasn't expecting Trinity to take over because he was having one of his nighttime conversations. He's clearly lying about it being secured and is downplaying any suspicion that something could be up. Now Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, and Cypher betrays the group and all of Zion for the life of an actor in the Matrix. Also, like, Joe Pantoliano, like, he might have legitimately done this in real life, and we might all be in the Matrix, and that's a bit of theater, but it obviously makes you question your entire reality. Now, him being a Judas ties him downplaying any suspicion that something could be up. Now, Judas wasn't expecting Trinity to take over because he was having one of his nighttime conversations.
Yeah, of course.
In hindsight, he's the Judas of the group and probably talking with the agents right at the beginning. He says,
You weren't supposed to relieve me.
But I felt like taking a step.
and later the agents talk about how they have an informant when Trinity escapes. Now I feel like he was talking with the agents and wasn't expecting Trinity to take over because he was having one of his nighttime conversations. He's clearly lying about it being secured and is downplaying any suspicion that something could be up. Now Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, and Cypher betrays the group and all of Zion for the life of an actor in the Matrix. Also, like, Joe Pantoliano, like, he might have legitimately done this in real life, and we might all be in the Matrix, and that's a bit of theater, but it obviously makes you question your entire reality. Now, him being a Judas ties into the Christ metaphors, which are late.
Yes, Christianity imagery in this is extremely strong.
Throughout the movie, his betrayal leads to Neo's death and eventually his resurrection, just like the disciple. Cypher didn't believe from the off, with some of his first lines believing he was going to kill him.
We're gonna kill him. You understand that?
Beyond that, though, we get several different signifiers which are laced throughout the movie. When we first join Neo, we see headphones around him, and the subtitles reveal what this song is. That is Dissolve Girl by Massive Attack. Interestingly, the lyrics at this point in the song are, "You are not my savior, but I still don't go. Oh." Chai also says to Neo,
Hallelujah. My Savior, man. Person of Jesus Christ.
and there's also Keanu at the club saying, "House says," Cypher says,
Scared the bejesus.
the name Trinity also plays up the Holy Trinity, and he also dies and is then resurrected. Throughout the movie, we see as he performs miracles, and by the end, he has godlike abilities. Even his surname, Anderson, means Son of Man, and Jesus referred to himself as the Son of Man. This was to remind his disciples he was just like them, and you do get a feeling of humility from Neo. Neo is also an anagram of one, with a character representing the Chosen One. What's even crazier is that in Latin, Cypher means zero. So Neo is the one, and the one who betrays him is zero, with ones and zeros being used in computer binary code. Cypher is a word associated with encrypted data, and even the name choices have deeper layers to them. Now, it's from here that we travel to a zero, which is the point we begin at before we get to the one. This then takes us into the Matrix, where we start to uncover the truth. If you remember 1999, which I don't know how many of you were even born then, but if you were, then you probably remember a lot of the marketing was based around what is the Matrix. No one really knew and this teased the idea of mystery to the movie. Nobody had any idea what was happening, but when we first seen it, we all went in blind. But what is The Matrix, and how did the Wachowskis come up with it? Well, it all started back in 1992 with a pair working on the development of a comic book. They loved Ghost in the Shell, Kung Fu movies, Alice in Wonderland, and also Eastern philosophy.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice.
The Ghost in the Shell inspirations are seen right from the off, with the title sequence of that also being green lines of code. There's also the shootout in the lobby later on, which clearly pulls directly from the anime. Placed alongside each other, you can see that it's clearly ripping off it, and this extends to several other scenes we'll talk about. On top of this, there's also clear ties to Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, and it all comes together in this great melting pot. Years later, Lily Wachowski stated that a lot of The Matrix was built around anger and breaking free of corporatized structures. It all came together, and in 1994, the Wachowskis took their script assassins into the Warner Brothers offices. This was later made with Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas, with Richard Donner heading it up. Warner Brothers also purchased 2 other scripts, with these being Bound and lastly The Matrix. The pair made their directorial debut with Bound in 1996, and the neo-noir crime film was pretty well received. Asking if they could direct The Matrix, the doors opened, and the rest is history. The word Matrix means mother in Latin, and at this point, almost all humans are born to it. Humans are cocooned in artificial wombs and used for the energy to power the machines. Although the film was massive, before going into it, people were pretty unsure about it at the time. This included Will Smith, who got offered the role of Neo.
And they came in and they made a pitch for The Matrix. And as it turns out, they're geniuses. But there's a fine line in a pitch meeting between genius and what I experienced in the meeting. So this is the actual pitch that they made for The Matrix. Dude, you're thinking like imagine you're in a fight and then you got to jump. Imagine you stop, jump. Say that again. But then you can see around you 60 while you jump, while you stop jumping, right? And then we're going to invent these cameras. And then you can see the whole jump while you stop. So I made Wild Wild West.
Yep, so Smith went on to do Wild Wild West, but eventually Jada Pinkett Smith did go on to play Niobe in the sequels. Eventually Keanu Reeves signed on, and we had Lawrence Fishburne playing Morpheus. Originally they wanted Val Kilmer, but you can't think of anyone else in these roles at this point. Drafting in comic book artists Jeff Darren and Steven Scrose, they drew up 600 pages worth of storyboards. These were used to map out the entire movie, which takes us in the film itself. Firstly though, just a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll get right into it. Now, this video is sponsored by Factor. Factor takes the guesswork out of grocery shopping and meal prep, saving you time and energy. for other things. Raising my kids and spending most of my free time making videos for you guys means I haven't really got the time to spend hours and hours a week cooking. Fact is, in the past, when it comes to meal prep, I've worked with HelloFresh, but in case you don't know, they now own Factor. This means there's an even wider array of meal plans to choose from, and you can enjoy both brands with a discount direct from me. Head to pt03.com or click the link below and use the code SPOILERS50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. On top of that, you'll also get 20% off the next month of orders. Factor is clean eating made easy and uses discount to eat delicious food fast with the code SPOILERS50. That code again, SPOILERS50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Huge thank you again to Factor for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get into the rest of the breakdown. The film opens with a classic Matrix code that was my screensaver for most of the noughties. What you may not know, though, is how this is put together. Production designer Sam Whiteley scanned one of his wife's sushi recipe cookbooks and then layered these lines side by side with each other. Characters were flipped and there's numbers mixed in with letters, and it creates the idea that this pulls from real-world things. That iconic green is all...
一定也是为了那个玩意儿。你来之前，我算过一卦，你猜猜写的是啥？动不如静，有财无命。既要送死，也不拦你。小西天土地，在此恭迎天命人。变。
Set up here as well, with a green tint being added to the scenes within the Matrix. The creative team made sure that everything in these scenes had a green tint to it, and even dyed Keanu's white shirt so the color was slightly off. Now this green tint set up here as well, with a green tint being added to the scenes within the Matrix. The creative team made sure that everything in these scenes had a green tint to it, and even dyed Keanu's white shirt so the color was slightly off. Now this green tint is something that a majority of monitors used to have back in the 80s. On the opposite side of this, all the real world scenes have a blue tint to them, so we can easily differentiate between the two. However, there are simulated rooms that are free from the Matrix, such as the dojo. This was tinted yellow to give it a slightly distinct look to the other two. Now the code falling also resembles rain, which is something that's present throughout the film. When Neo gets soaked down in the office by the boss, we see that there's window cleaners working outside. When Neo's in the car, the rain behind him in the rear window also runs down the glass just like the code. Later on, when they storm the skyscraper with the chopper, we also see water running over the edge. This further cements the idea that the code is in everything, and it's something that gets picked up on a lot more in the later which is something that's present throughout the film. When Neo gets soaked down in the office by the boss, we see that there's window cleaners working outside. When Neo's in the car, the rain behind him in the rear window also runs down the glass just like the code. Later on, when they storm the skyscraper with the chopper, we also see water running over the edge. This further cements the idea that the code is in everything, and it's something that gets picked up on a lot more in the later sequels. We won't talk about those yet. However, what we will talk about is the sense of paranoia and deception that's set up right away. That opening phone call has cipher lying, and the pair are also being spied on. The world in the Matrix is of course a deception, and this is overseen by machines. It's something explored in things like 1984, where there's the constant idea that Big Brother's watching you. Machines are able to monitor humanity at all times because they've set up this fake simulation. So right away, we get that feeling with the authorities shining a light on everything. This is carried on into that opening moment where we transition directly into a policeman's flashlight. Thematically, it cements the idea the authorities are always watching, and the characters have to run and hide in order to survive. Flashlights are actually used brilliantly throughout the scene, with them also appearing behind Trinity's head. However, later on we see similar iconography coming down from the ship when Neo exits the Matrix. This enforces the idea that the machines are in control and highlights the authority figures are just pawns to them. And the phone number itself denotes that this is in the Chicago area, which is confirmed by a number of key things. Though the movie was filmed out in Sydney, the picture in Neo's boss's office indeed shows the Chicago skyline. There's also the train at the end, which says Loop, with signs for Wells and Lake popping up throughout the film. Chicago is the Wachowskis' hometown, so it makes sense that they'd want to set the movie here. Traveling through the Zero, the insides of it appear like columns, foreshadowing the towers that the Matrix slaves are trapped in. Now we learn that they're after Trinity due to the trace leading them here. This building ends up returning at the end of the film, and it's the one that Neo runs into just before his death. Looking at the door numbers, we can see this is 303, which is the same as at the end. This is how Smith knew where Neo was going to be, because he'd already been there earlier in the movie. You can actually see the police tape next to the elevator, which is some amazing attention to detail. 303 has 3 numbers with the 2 3s representing Trinity. There's going to be lots of reaching in this video, I warn you. Either way, there's so much going on with it, and I love Hugo Weaving in this film. His delivery and cadence, it's so unique, with it being almost like a robot trying to mimic a human. Messed up that impression, but we'll move on. As the cars pull up, we can also see a sign that says Kung Fu, showcasing a big inspiration for the movie. So good, and at this point we get a moment that changed the course of action movies and games for the rest of the time. That is... It's bullet time, bullet time, bullet time, bullet time. Dear me. Now the basis of this, it came along with the invention of the camera and the idea of time-lapse photography. First pioneered with the horse in motion, Edward Muybridge developed the technique. Butchered his name, and I'm not going to explain the entire history of photography to you, but the idea of this started all the way back in 1878. Muybridge placed a line of cameras in a line, and these were set up so that when the horse ran past, they'd trigger the shutter and capture the image. Thus a photograph of the entire motion of the horse running was created, which when projected created a motion picture. Now in terms of the thinking behind it, that's exactly what happened in order to create bullet time. However, similar shots and ways of moving the camera or perspective were shown before this. One of the earliest noticed examples happens during the intro for Speed Racer all the way back in 1966. As he leaps out of the car, we get that freeze motion before the quote-unquote camera then rotates. The Wachowskis would go on to direct a live-action Speed Racer film, and thus you can kind of draw the conclusion that they may have been influenced by this. Flash forward to the 1980s, and Tim McMillan started working on the idea of time-slice motion picture array cameras. Eventually this led to his Project Dead Horse, which in itself was a reference to Muybridge. Now where it first really got to the point it could be used and processed through high-quality cameras was back in 1996 with that Smirnoff advert in which we have a character dodging bullets. Clearly a massive influence, and the creative team also credited Akira with the action scenes, inspiring how characters moved around the environment. Now, the Wachowskis adopted these techniques and used rigs to either photograph a moment at the same time, like what we get here with Trinity. This is why she hangs still in the air. However, shots later on, such as when Neo and Smith dive at each other, that was done through triggering shutters milliseconds apart. That gives the idea of the movement of the cameras, and it's probably the first thing that blew people away about this movie. Having that as one of your first big action scenes, it just instantly pulls you in. Like I said, this would go on to influence so much with Max Payne, Fierce, all that shots environment. Now, the Wachowskis adopted these techniques and used rigs to either photograph a moment at the same time, like what we get here with Trinity. This is why she hangs still in the air. Other shots later on, such as when Neo and Smith dive at each other, that was done through triggering shutters milliseconds apart. That gives the idea of the movement of the cameras high-quality cameras was back in 1996 with that Smirnoff advert in which we have a character dodging bullets. Clearly a massive influence, and the creative team also credited Akira with the action scenes, inspiring how characters moved around the environment. Now, the Wachowskis adopted these techniques and used rigs to either photograph a moment at the same time, like what we get here with Trinity. This is why she hangs still in the air. However, shots later on, such as when Neo and Smith dive at each other, that was done through triggering shutters milliseconds apart. That gives the idea of the movement of the cameras through high-quality cameras was back in 1996 with that Smirnoff advert in which we have a character dodging bullets. Clearly a massive influence, and the creative team also credited Akira.
好得很，好得很。他还记得你的味道。那猴活着的时候，只知四处求人，哭哭啼啼；死了还祸及子孙，引得你们一个个送上门来。我这大包都快装不下了。 康金龙，你法性已通，出来帮为师试试他的成色。看看这只猴子是否够格做我的弟子。
哎。
Action scenes, inspiring how characters moved around the environment. Now, the Wachowskis adopted these techniques and used rigs to either photograph a moment at the same time, like what we get here with.
有了此番轮回，就别想再轻易涅槃。